In view of the very extensive commentary around this issue in recent days, which has conflated alleged wrongdoing involving individuals in Northern Ireland with the sale by NAMA of Project Eagle, I wish at the outset today to make 4 points very clear. The NAMA sale process for Project Eagle was robust, competitive right to the end, and secured the best outcome for the Irish taxpayer. When NAMA became aware of a concern surrounding the participation of one of the bidders for Eagle, we immediately and without hesitation took steps to ensure they withdrew from the process. Third point, no pressure from any source, political or otherwise, influenced NAMA in regard to the decision to sell the loans of Northern Ireland debtors or the decision to accept the winning bid from Cerberus. And the fourth point, if a payment did find its way to an account in the Isle of Man, as has been alleged, then wherever such a payment came from, it most certainly did not come from NAMA or from proceeds that were due to NAMA under this sale. In fact, NAMA had no knowledge of this alleged payment to Mr. Coulter by Brown Rudnick until recent days when it was put into the public domain.
In the middle of the biggest deal you've ever done, the biggest property portfolio deal you've ever done, you've got the whole Northern Ireland portfolio. A major cock-up has happened, a massive cock-up. A third of your bidders have gone, and you just plough ahead. Surely the answer here is to go back to Lazards and say, get us another bidder. This process is fractured. It's damaged. Isn't that correct?
No.
It's damaged by the withdrawal of one person.
I don't accept that, Deputy. We took advice from Lazarus at the time to say, if now that PIMCO have withdrawn, is there still sufficient competitive tension in who can buy this portfolio? And Lazarus advised us that there was sufficient competitive tension remaining, that both Fortis and Cerberus were very eager to acquire this portfolio and would bid competitively against each other.
But it wasn't optimal, was it?
Well, it wasn't a question.
It wasn't the best possible situation for you when one of them's gone. One of the pillars has disappeared.
Well, to be honest with you, Deputy, at the start there's only about 8 or 9 funds in the world that could write a cheque this big. And all of them were approached to see if they were interested in the portfolio, and it whittled down to 3. One of the 3 withdraws. That happens quite regularly, not just in NAMA sales, but in other bank sales. And sometimes in major property sales that happens, that effectively one falls away and says, you know, for their own reasons. It's just that this was a very particular reason, and a very particular reason that NAMA wouldn't allow PIMCO to continue.
What was the difference between the 2 bids?
In the end?
Two remaining bids.
The difference was about...
What were the 2 bids? Can you tell us?
The final bid by PIMCO, by Cerberus, was 1.241 billion.
1.241, yeah.
Yeah, sterling.
Yeah.
And the bid by Fortis was almost 1.1 billion, Deputy.
Okay. Here we have a huge global transaction. Massive. One of the biggest deals ever done in the world in property, I suspect. 850 properties involved in a big bulk thing. And by complete coincidence, 2 of the principal bidders are using Brown Rudnick, and by an equally odd coincidence, they're using Tuans in Belfast. They both land in the same place. Would your antennae not have gone up? Would the alarm bells were not ringing, saying, hey, there's a conflict here?
No, there wasn't a conflict in relation to Brown Rudnick or Tuans.
Okay, Tuans,
that was not the issue for us. The issue for us was the former NIEC member or anybody else in that space, and that was the confirmation we sought. The rationale for Cerberus involving through Brown Rudnick Tuans was that Tuans and Brown Rudnick had been doing a lot of work on this portfolio anyway when PIMCO were in the frame, and that commercially it made sense for them to, rather than start back at square one, to use those firms. So, I mean, I'm not making a judgment on that, whether was that a totally rational commercial decision, but it didn't seem to us unreasonable.
But were Tuans acting simultaneously for both bidders?
No, I'm not aware that there were.
They
It
weren't
was
at any stage.
Tuhans or Brown Rudnick were acting only after PIMCO withdrew, or were acting for Cerberus, I should say.
And who was acting for Cerberus prior to that?
Cerberus's prime legal advisors were Linklaters. Yeah. There was a subsequent piece of information which came to us that indicated that there was a fee of 15 million sterling to be split three ways between Brown Rudnick, Tuhans, so the managing partner of Tuhans, and Frank Kushner.
Wow.
That was after PIMCO had exited or been exited by us.
15 million sterling.
Yeah.
So, and when did you find that out?
PIMCO told us.
They told you at the time.
No, they told us after the withdrawal. Didn't matter, by the way, I agree with your wow factor, but it wouldn't have mattered to us whether it was.
But it's just another kind of pretty startling fact in this process that something very odd is going on. And I would have thought that the sequence of events, again, the accumulation of events coming up here now, would make you guys say, look, this thing stinks. We better start again. And surely that came to the board when you heard, 15 million to be split and an individual to get a certain amount of it.
Yeah.
And did the board discuss pulling this tender or not?
We were appalled, but our real concern was the involvement of, or the alleged involvement of a former member of the NIAC. You have Brown Rudnick as strategic advisors, Tuhans as doing due diligence, legal fees. You know, fees can be of a scale like that in a project like this, you know.
Were you paying fees like that? Obviously you weren't paying for finder's fees, but you didn't pay any fees like that to Lovells, was it? What, did you?
We didn't. Our Hogan Lovells were our main legal advisors, and their fees were 1.8 million.
Yeah, are you not again thinking, hey, there's something a bit odd about this? There's an awful lot of money slushing around in the system over there. What are these guys up to? These guys who are bidding?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's an extraordinary amount of money. But the real issue for us was the involvement or possible involvement of a former member of the Northern Ireland Committee. And we wanted to deal with that, get him out of the way and get any involvement with PIMCO after that, as far as we were concerned. Is
there any possibility that PIMCO could have been a kind of stalking horse for anyone else? And their withdrawal could have convenienced another bidder. Is there any possibility of that?
No, I think
due diligence costs a lot of money, Deputy, for looking at any portfolio, but certainly a portfolio this size. You know, it's not unusual for people on bidding on portfolios to spend 1, 2, 3 million on due diligence, and then if they don't win the portfolio, then they're disappointed because they've spent so much money. That happens in big asset sales and big portfolio sales.
So I just want to clear this. There's 55 debtors roughly in Northern Ireland. A very small business community. I'm sure that a lot of information is shared, a lot of information would be known. You had someone on the Northern Ireland Advisory Council or Committee that indeed was well known and well placed within that jurisdiction. And then you had two firms. You had, Tuhans, the local firm, and then Brown Rudnick. And in January 2014, you had this suggestion in terms of the memorandum of understanding. Now, I know that no one acted on it. I know it wasn't from you. I know it was just a piece of paper that went to you. But bearing in mind the size of the economy, the 55 debtors, I would imagine there was lots known about everyone within that community and their indebtedness and so on. So you have the Northern Ireland Executive or someone from there, suggesting this MOU. And without a shadow of a doubt, it protects the debtors that were there. And it's the best offer I've seen for debtors where, for nil payment, they were released. So you have that being suggested on one side, and we can't ignore it, because there's something going on up here that is unusual. And that is certainly unusual, that someone would, of that standing within Northern Ireland, would suggest this. Then you have the involvement of the two firms. Now, in the correspondence that you sent, or you gave us this morning, the Brown-Rudnick correspondence on the 24th of June 2013, in that letter from Brown-Rudnick to Mr. Wilson, which is marked highly confidential, it states in that letter that two of our clients have each confirmed that they would be independently be committed to a process of potential outright purchase of the NAMA Northern Irish Borrower Connection loan book. So at that stage in June 2013, Brown-Rudnick was indicating clearly that there was two clients. So they had two clients, and it would appear that thereafter then, when PIMCO withdrew, which was March 2014, the information around the 15 million became clear to you. So it would seem to me, to go back to Deputy Ross's point, that it is quite possible that a company was used as a stalking horse, and that then the final bidder was there to come in to make that final bid and close the deal, but that the information was certainly being shared all around the place, and that with connections in Northern Ireland, that not only was this deal compromised, but there was even an extension of the deal that would have accommodated debtors. And I have to agree that, bearing all of that in mind, surely your intelligence from the front up there would have told you there is something that is at least odd about the deal, and that something should have been done by NAMA to restructure the whole process and your whole approach to that deal. And maybe that restructuring would have been not to sell in just one single property portfolio, but to break it down to attract in a wider range of bidders. Or at least that you should have reported to someone the information that was now in the public domain from 2013. Somebody was setting up the purchase, is what it appears to me. That's what comes across in the correspondence. That's what comes across in this confidential MOU. And that's what seems to come across in the context of the use of Brown-Rudnick and Tuhans and the involvement of the individual that you've just mentioned. What do you say to that?
Chairman, it is not...
Even from perception,
Chairman, it is not unusual that firms such as Brown-Rudnick would go out and seek deals and try to get in a position that they can promote that deal to third parties and get a fee. That happens quite regularly. So when Brown-Rudnick went out and, tried to use the term source the deal, that their fee was only going to be paid if the portfolio was sold. And from our point of view, we want to sell the portfolio for the best price we can get for that portfolio. We were very clear from the outset that we wanted 1.3 billion sterling for the portfolio. That's what we valued the underlying portfolio at, and we got 1.3 billion sterling for it.
Do you feel, Mr. MacDonald, that you might have been set up in any way?
No.
So this information is out there. These firms are out there, reputable firms, I understand, and I understand the reason why they're in the market, Brown Rudnick, in terms of getting interest and getting its value out of its involvement and so on. But when you piece together the correspondence you gave us this morning, the memorandum, the fact that it was 55 debtors, it's a small market, this would seem to me to have been the wrong approach based on the information that you gleaned as you went through the process. And on the 10th of March 2014, when this became known to NAMA that this 15 million sterling was to be split 3 ways, according to PIMCO, that is, that surely that should have sent alarm bells ringing. And even other instances before that, going back to 2014 in that letter, going back to Mr. Cushnan, his termination or his resignation or whatever from the council and so on. And there are other issues which I'll get to later on. But it should have been, in my opinion, a huge concern for NAMA at that time. And you should have stood back and questioned the process again. That's the point I'm making. Because you're saying to me, in answer to what I'm asking, you're outlining Brown Rudnick and their involvement. I'm going beyond that to the knowledge in the local economy, the knowledge within the debtors, the knowledge between Brown Rudnick, Tuhans and Mr. Cushnan, the other interests that were there, and it just doesn't stack up. In relation to the Cerberus, confirming to you regarding no fee commission and so on was paid, who certified that?
On behalf of Cerberus, it was their senior managing director, I think.
Yeah, and it was confirmed by their general counsel.
Yeah. It was confirmed by
Their general counsel.
Their legal counsel.
their legal counsel. But who confirmed it to them?
They sought confirmations under they advised us under their Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, standard form confirmations from Brown Rudnick and from Tuhans.
So who signed off in Tuhans?
I don't know, because that was between Cerberus and Tuhans.
Okay, so we don't know that.
No, I don't know that.
Okay. I have to ask you these questions in relation to public comment outside. First of all, to the CNAG, reference was made to the fact that you don't have the wherewithal, as how it's described, to deal with NAMA and this issue. So can you confirm for the committee? I think you've done so already.
Yes, I'm satisfied that I do have the resources and the powers to examine NAMA's role, okay, not to examine any other aspect of the thing about which there might be public concern.
Okay.
But in relation to NAMA, yes.
And secondly, mention was made in public comment about 13 cases being investigated by the Gardaí in relation to NAMA. Is that correct? 13?
Well, that's figures provided by an answer by the Minister for Justice to
okay.
a parliamentary question. We are not aware of those 13 cases, but if the Minister for Justice says the Gardaí have told him there's been complaints made, there has been complaints made.
But you're not aware of?
No.
It's a complaint then, rather than...
It's 13 complaints lodged with the, as we understand it, with the Gardaí. Aileen, since you're liaising with the Gardaí, is that... Yeah.
I actually don't know how many complaints they may be investigating. All I can say is that whenever we are asked to provide information, we do so.
Yeah.
And you don't know whether those investigations are at an advanced stage?
No.
Or
No.
The Gardaí won't tell us.
They won't tell you. In relation to your discipline, have you disciplined many of the staff within your organisation in relation to, as is classified here, insider dealing or leaking of information?
No,
or accepting?
No, Chairman. There are 2 cases which we've publicly got on record, which we have referred to the Gardaí, and.
Do they relate to information being given out? Would they relate to any other issue for staff in terms of maybe receiving presents or recognition of the
They
work?
relate to, in our view, confidentiality breaches under the NAMA Act, where we refer them to the Gardaí.
So they refer to the Gardaí
Yeah,
as well?
2 former employees.
Okay. listening to what went on here, I firmly am of the belief that the process should have been abandoned. There's no doubt in my mind. I know you may say it's in hindsight, but bearing in mind all of what you said in relation to the small economy, small number of players, information being shared and known, the involvement of this MOU, the political system, and quite frankly, it does stink of it. And I would be deeply concerned about it. I know that the CNAG is now about to, or in the process of, undertaking an investigation or an analysis of some of the sales within NAMA, and I think the sooner that comes into the public domain, the better. I think it was ill-judged not to abandon the process, and I have to say that some way has to be found in terms of this investigation of linking what happened in the south to what seems to be that web of construction of that web and the same players and so on as outlined by Deputy Lamb, and cooperating with the investigations up there. I think it has to happen. We had an example of this where the PAC met with the PAC counterparts in Northern Ireland, and I think that it would serve NAMA, it would serve the system well if there was collaboration and cooperation all around to have a full-scale investigation with all parties concerned being brought to the table and having somebody investigate. I think there is no other way out of this, because out of this hearing today we have to decide what we do with the information, and it's inconclusive because of the fact that the other players are not with us, and it's disturbing because of the fact of the knowledge that was held by individuals, particularly the PIMCO revelation about the 15 million.
So you're asking for an investigation on top of what the CNAG is going to be looking at? Or?
No, the CNAG will look at the analysis within NAMA. What I'm saying is that beyond that, because there are other players outside of this jurisdiction, it's difficult to deal with it, and some mechanism should be found to deal with it in that sort of all-island or way, where agencies on either side of this border should cooperate to present a more fuller picture of what happened in relation to this to the general public. I don't know what that is, Deputy DC.
That's what I'm asking you. Okay.
I don't know what it is, but I honestly believe that all concerned, NAMA should be concerned about clearing their name and in all of what you did this morning, and whatever wrongdoing, if there was wrongdoing, should be uncovered and explained and identified. But when you have the Isle of Man, when you have the numbers of companies involved, when you have it explained the way it was explained this morning, the story just worsens. It just the plot thickens. And we haven't come to an end of it, quite frankly. And we only know that PIMCO disclosed to NAMA the 15 million. You have to ask how a firm that size cannot miss the 7 million. It's not answered. It can't be answered here. And I think that we do owe it to the political system and to the administration in terms of NAMA and others to get to the end of this. And for the MOU to appear and it having no official, if you like, backing from where it originated from, that's quite disturbing. And disturbing that the 55, it's suggested that the 55 debtors, that it would be nil as far as they were concerned. Like, who did it benefit? What was this about? Where is the 7 million? Where is it going to go now? These are the questions that have to be answered. And in relation to our investigation, I know the CNAG will do his investigation into this, and it might shine more light on the processes and procedures within NAMA itself, to maybe benefit NAMA and benefit our understanding of what went on. But I do feel that it's an unfinished piece of work that can only be concluded by some agency straddling the both jurisdictions to bring it to a head. And I'm not sure, I know that there's difficulty in terms of you appearing before the committee in Northern Ireland, or you said earlier on that you wouldn't. I think that with the PSNI involved, maybe they might expedite a thorough investigation that could thereafter, depending on their outcomes, be dealt with more appropriately at a committee so that the information can be put out there. And it is striking, Mr. Reid, by the way, that we get the release of these papers this morning, the letters that is, and the release of the MOU this morning. I think that alarm bells should have been ringing loud and clear a long time ago in relation to this, once you had sight of the letters and the correspondence. That's my view. So we'll conclude our business today, but it's very much, as I said already, an unfinished piece of work.